For you this evening to specifically ask for blessings over the women and men on Monroe City Council. May you bestow wisdom and discernment and grace for them to lead as a united group. May this meeting be fruitful to the future of this amazing town, not only to live in, but to work, play, and grow in. Most importantly, may the plans and discussions brought forth from this meeting bring you the glory. I pray this prayer not only for the city of Monroe, but for the state of Georgia and the entire United States. For these are unprecedented times where it is so easy for one to live in fear, to get caught up in the things of this world. But I encourage all of us to remember where and whom our faith lies, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Still, while on this earth, there is a need for preparedness, diligence, and obedience. We are mandated to work, but must remember to commit that work to the Lord, whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. May this work that we are called to do be done through the lens of love. Again, cover these individuals, Father, tonight as they prepare to serve. I pray all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Laura. And that is why we have somebody come in to give the invocation instead of my trying to do it myself. Thank you.
I'll have a good meeting.
Call this meeting to order and let the record reflect that I'm actually going to count. I'm going to call for your presence. Larry Bradley?
Here.
Ross Bradley?
Here.
Mylisha Crawford?
Here.
Thank you, Mylisha. David Dickinson?
Here.
Normie Garrett?
Here.
Tyler Gregory? Nathan Little?
Here.
Lee Malcolm? I see Lee. Lee, you unmuted? Well, we know she's here. And then I need a motion, please, for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley and a second.
Second.
Was that you, Nathan?
That's right.
Yeah. Second by Mr. Little. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Let the record reflect that Tyler Gregory has joined the meeting. Moving to the approval of the consent agenda. This is the council minutes from December 1st work session, December 8th and 21st council minutes, Planning Commission, Downtown Development Authority, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the LMIG allocation to approve as presented. I need a motion, please.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. David Dickinson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nathan Little. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. As we move in tonight, Mr. Bradley and I talked about it because of this format. Is we have other, I don't know if anybody else is getting that buzz. As we have other votes, we'll try to do one by one, so I'll call your names. I don't think we had any public comments. We have one that's coming up for one of the public hearings, but did we have any other public come in downstairs, Logan?
No, sir. Nobody is here at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move straight into the public hearing for the conditional use at 919 Holly Hill Road. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hang on a second, Mr. Kelly. If we could, Mayor, before we get into each of these individual public hearings, if we could just give a brief overview of the procedure that we'll be conducting to allow folks to speak. I can go through time limits as outlined in our zoning ordinance as well.
Okay. we can do that. And I was getting a little reverb when you were talking, Paul. As we go through this, to the public hearing portion, Mr. Kelly will discuss the item. Then I'll ask to open the meeting to public input. We'll have those in favor will be able to speak. Is it 2 minutes, Paul?
Well, I'll get to the time limits. I just want to make sure that folks know how to raise their hand in this electronic format, how they will be recognized. First, we'll hear from
Okay.
then we'll hear from those in favor, then we'll hear from those opposed, and then the applicant will have the opportunity to rebut.
Okay.
Mayor Howard,
Yes, sir.
can someone maybe try to work with Lee, because I don't think she's on yet, and I think she's still muted.
Don't see Lee on here anymore at all.
Yep.
I'll shoot her a text while we're talking. But I'll go ahead and say, as we do, and Paul, I'm sorry if I'm repeating what you said, but I just want to confirm that we're all on the same page. We'll ask for public comment, and I'll give plenty of time for people to, how we say, raise their hand or say they're here to speak. The limit is 5 minutes per person, and Mr. Rosenthal will be the timekeeper. Because during a public hearing, time limits are a little bit convoluted, so I'll defer to the attorney. The applicant will have 10 minutes to present. The opposition will have no less than 10 to present. The applicant, attorneys, spokespersons, organized groups don't have individual time limits. However, individuals speaking for or against will have 2 minutes to speak. And again, Paul will be the mediator, moderator of that. So, moving to conditional use, 919 Holly Hill Road. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. The
Yes, sir.
applicant, Jamie Cox, is requesting a conditional use for a residential business use, which was recently added to the list of approved potential residential businesses. As we discussed last week, they're just looking for approval to operate their cottage food business out of the residential kitchen at their home at 919 Holly Hill Road.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kelly? Hearing none, I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for the purpose of public input. Is the applicant here?
I am. My name's Jamie.
Hi, Ms. Cox. Thank you for coming. Would you like to speak on the conditional use?
Sure. The reason why I was requesting for the conditional use is to be able to continue my in-home business that I started when I lived in Jackson County. If you're not familiar with what a cottage food license is, you can find the information on the Georgia Department of Agriculture, and it actually goes over all the steps and policies and procedures that are required of an individual who has a license to be able to do so out of their home. With that being said, some of the conditions are you can't have parking, signs, it's not a business, so you can't have flow of traffic and things of that nature that would be disruptive to your neighborhood and your community. Also, with having the cottage food license, which so many people have, enables me to be able to participate in like festivals, like on Saturdays when we were doing the little festivals on the square. I can't sell there because I don't, without a cottage license, I wouldn't be able to do so and participate in that. The main focus that I had prior to moving to Monroe was wedding cakes, and those are all done by delivery only. So to say that there would be any traffic coming to my home, 99.9% of the time, that's not going to happen, because almost everything I've done in the past has either been by delivery or by mail. Because I can ship within inside the state of Georgia, just not outside the state. But there's a lot of things that are conditional for that license, but it doesn't disrupt the community in such a way where people would see flow of traffic issues, parking issues, delivery, because I can't have commercial deliveries or anything of that nature. And I just, use the space inside my home to be able to do so. And hopefully one day, I can afford a commercial space, which would be awesome. But this is where my beginnings are.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of the conditional use? Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition?
Yes, hello?
That sounds like Deanna.
Yep, that's me.
Deanna, would you like me to read your letter first, or would you like to just go ahead and speak?
That would be fine. I just needed to get something, but to let the council know that I would be speaking at the meeting, and I can elaborate a little bit in terms of what more I'd like to say.
Okay. I'll go ahead and read what you had said. Hi, my name is Deanna Green. My husband and I live at 973 Holly Hill Road. I would like to speak at the meeting tonight to express concerns that a number of residents on Holly Hill Road share. I was planning to provide a written statement listing the names of myself and my neighbors. I just saw the notation on the front and would like to elaborate on my concerns. We have additional concerns that I would like to share at the council meeting. Please see below for my fellow neighbors, Rob and Tiffany Coleman, Rob and Barbara Howard, Elaine Oakes, Joe and Barbara Preston, Don and Gail Smith, John Snow, and Nicole Wilson. All right, Ms. Green, would you like to add?
Well, a number of the neighbors on the street, and some, I did not get approval today to add their names, but there are additional neighbors here that do have some concerns. The main thing is this street on Holly Hill has historically been for decades a quiet residential street, and typically homeowners have lived here for years and years, and that everyone knows everyone else, and it's just a quiet neighborhood. My husband's parents built this home in 1983. Ms. Oakes has lived in her home since 1982. There are a number of others, but we have new people moving onto the street. Some of those people have passed away, and we do have new people that live here now. And we welcome those people. We have a number of families with children that have moved onto the street, and they like to get into the street and ride their bicycles. They play ball at the end of the street in the cul-de-sac. Some of my neighbors, I have an adult neighbor who likes to put his dog in his golf cart and ride with him in the passenger seat and just take a little stroll. And, we have a young man who's an avid runner, and he runs every single day. So he's out in the street sometimes before daylight. Even I've seen him running. People walk their dogs. Children and moms walk their dogs. Moms, wives and husbands walk their dogs together. It's that kind of a neighborhood. And we all feel like we have some concerns. I know Ms. Cox indicates that there won't be any increase in traffic, but she did state in her application that she intends to grow her business that she began in Jackson County. So we feel like there possibly could be an increase of customers there. And she does indicate as well that her driveway would be used if there's customer pickup. So her driveway, if the council has the information provided by the Planning and Zoning Committee, there's a plat there showing her home and her driveway. If you look at that, the driveway of the home, which is in no way her fault and can't be helped by her, is in a very dangerous place to begin with. It's right in the center of a sharp curve, and you cannot see in either direction coming around the curve to see if anyone's coming. And one issue we've had, is there's been parking in the street. And I know some of that was when they initially moved into the house and they were having some construction, some yard maintenance and so forth. But there's been several instances where there's been near accidents, and I myself was involved in an instance where I was behind a truck parked right on the curve, a large truck, and I had a car coming up behind me. I was going out of the street. There was a car coming in on the other side, so I could not go around the truck. And then another car came up behind that car. Well, it so happens that the first car coming towards me, needed to turn into his driveway, which I was right in front of and couldn't move. So I couldn't back up to let him in, and the car behind him couldn't get around. He couldn't turn to let that car through. So it was just kind of a mess, and we sort of worked it out between us as to how we would get him in that driveway so everyone else could move. But it's a concern. And I know that it's indicated that there won't be any deliveries or anything like that. But I do have a neighbor that has expressed observation of delivery trucks coming there often. And he believes they are related to the bakery operation. So I guess we just have some concerns. We're not sure exactly what the intention is here, but it's not, this is, I understand the regulations and the rules. I've looked it up, the Department of Agriculture site, and yes, they regulate this business, and primarily their job is to regulate the production of the food items. So they don't come and regulate traffic and all those things. And if there is to be any parking, we're fearful that there'll be parking on the street, and people backing out of the driveway or pulling out of the driveway. It's very difficult. It's almost impossible, I would say, to back out of the driveway. So then we feel like those cars would probably come to the end of the street, to the cul-de-sac and turn around, which is increasing traffic on the entire street. And this is just not the appropriate place for this type of business. It doesn't fit with the long-term history, with the character of the street it has always been. And it's just, we feel like it's possibly an avenue to have more people even wanting to do this. And ultimately, the street will turn into something that our property values will be decreased. And we just feel like it could be a danger. So with that being said, I do believe that a couple of my neighbors had spoken to Lee Malcolm, and I don't know if she's been able to come in on the conversation or if she's been able to hear any of this. But a couple of them did not put their names in with my statement because they had already spoken and expressed their concerns. So I don't know what we can do about getting her in on this, but I do know that I think she was interested in the topic. And also, I did want to mention that today I spoke with a neighbor who believes there is already that type of operation going on there at the residence, the bakery operation going on there. So I'm not sure. I know that another neighbor says that Ms. Cox told them in person that they have a storefront business elsewhere, and they have another business here in Monroe that's similar. So I feel like maybe there are streets in Monroe where homeowners could do this type of thing, but I just feel like Holly Hill is not the place, and my neighbors agree. So we would like the council to consider our concerns and take that into consideration as you make your decision tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Is there anyone else here to speak against the conditional use? Hearing none, we will take that into consideration in just a few minutes. Moving to the variance at 603 and 606 Alcovey Street, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we discussed last week in the work session, this is a variance request at those addresses to reduce the size of two proposed lots in a proposed subdivision, which is currently zoned R1A with conditions. The recommendation of staff and the Planning Commission is for denial. The background information provided there is the reasoning for the recommendation for denial, and the standards for the decision for a variance request are listed that we thought were germane to the issue. So if you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Are there any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for public input. Is the applicant here?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wilson, would
Yes,
you like
sir.
to speak in favor of
Sure,
the variance?
sure. So thanks everyone for the time. So let me start from the beginning. I'll keep it brief but thorough in the interest of time. January of 2018, I had this property rezoned to R1A with conditions. 14 lot subdivision that I submitted a engineered platted drawing to to the city, also to the council, that had lot dimensions on the plat. The first city council meeting, it was tabled so there can be some conditions put into place as far as aesthetic things, fits and finishes, sodded yards, pitch roof minimum, shingle, architectural shingle minimum. All of these things I conceded to and we put into the plan. So move forward 2 years or a year and a half, I submit to get my land disturbance permit from the city for final plat. At that time, I was told that the drawing that we rendered that was approved by the council, that was turned in, that everybody had for months and months, was not going to be, that the lot square footage minimum had to be 10,000 square feet. So first of all, I don't know how it got that far before that was discussed. Everyone on the council, in the office, they all had the plat. It was all approved based on the plat. And just to bring up a point about the plat, 8 of the 14 units, 8 of the 14 lots on that plat were less than 8,500 square feet. So fast forward today, when I submitted to get the land disturbance permit, I was told by the city that the lots had to be 10,000 square foot minimum, which, just in the best interest of everyone, I decided to go back to Alcovey Surveying and have it redrawn instead of fighting it because it was already approved. So today, I'm asking, when it was redrawn, all lots except for 2 are 10,000 square foot minimum, and the 2 that aren't are about 8,500 and change, between 8,500 and 8,600 square feet. So that's the backdrop, and this is where this property is. It's going to be highly desirable. The houses will, there's no way for them to start any less than 300,000. It'll be a nice development, and I just can't see what 2 additional lots, what I'm asking for, will negatively, how it could negatively impact the city or the proposed proposed development. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the variance? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak against the variance? Hearing none, I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed. And we'll come back to that in a few minutes. I need to move to the variance at 132 Pinecrest Drive. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This request is for a reduction in setback on Pine Circle. The lot frontage would have required an additional front setback. Susan Walden is requesting this variance, and we basically had her come before you, as we discussed in the meeting last week, in an abundance of caution and to make sure that we cross all our T's and dot our I's on getting this variance, due to the fact that she could have potentially qualified for this setback variance based on the average setback of the adjacent properties on that block. Anyhow, they're requesting a reduction to 10 feet from 30 feet on that setback, and due to the fact that they're going to be fronting the house on Pinecrest and not Pine Circle, I think it's appropriate to grant that setback. And the recommendation from the Planning Commission was also to approve the reduction to 10 feet, irrespective of my recommendation to the contrary, having considered this new information.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for public comment. Is the applicant here? Hearing none. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the variance? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against the variance? I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed, and we'll revisit that in just a few minutes. Need to move to the rezone of 201 Bold Springs Avenue, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir. This application is for a request for a rezone from PRD. It's a segment of a previous PRD to a B2 zoning classification. The recommendation from staff is to grant a rezone, but to the lowest possible business zoning classification that would accommodate their needs, which is B1. Planning and zoning made the same recommendation or concurred with that recommendation. And that's that application. If you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Mr. Kelly? Is the applicant here?
This is Rick Hudson from Mountain Creek.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Go ahead.
Well, I respect the decision of the commission, and I think going forward, we would want to have that zoning.
To clarify, that zoning being B1 or B2?
B1.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else we need to consider?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming or joining us. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this rezone? Hearing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against the rezone? Hearing none, I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed, and we'll revisit it in just a few minutes. Moving to new business for the conditional use at 919 Holly Hill Road, I'll open the floor to council members only for discussion and or action. Do I have any questions or comments?
I have a question for Ms. Cox.
Yes, sir.
Who is the applicant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You said that 99.99% of all of your dealings will be with customers, I guess, that you were delivering product to?
Correct.
What would
my last location, during the time that I had my license at my other home, I only had one person pick up. So the likelihood of somebody actually coming to my house is very small because I do delivery or I mail it.
Gotcha.
And if you guys later on, when this is done, give me the opportunity to maybe speak to some of the things that were said, I can give some answers into some of those things that were stated.
I think actually that would be appropriate before we go any further with any questions, if you would like to proceed.
Sure. And I understand some of the concerns that people would have with business such as what I would like to do. And I have spoken with several of my neighbors as well, who have not shown me any concerns. I haven't had the opportunity to speak to everybody, but I have gone by the Green's home and knocked on the door, but I don't think they were home the day that I popped by to introduce myself. My home is the very first home on the street on the left. And to go past my home would be to venture to the rest of the neighborhood. But outside of that, being the very first home in the neighborhood, the likelihood of somebody missing it and going somewhere, which again, I don't intend having any people coming to my home. But with that being said, there's no children that live within 4 to 5 houses of my home. I'm the first home when you come in. We recently had a 3-car garage built. Mr. Kelly is familiar with that. So yes, we did have construction going on during a period of 2 weeks, I think. So it did cause a little bit of chaos with the water, the plumbing, the structure, the concrete, and things of that nature. It gets a little crazy, but the building is done. It's completed with the exception of a few minor things on the inside. So the people that have been here, which would be electrical, they pull in my driveway. Our driveway was expanded exponentially. We spent $20,000 to expand our driveway. So if for some reason somebody would need to pull into my driveway, I back out personally myself every single day. And I've not had any issues personally with that. I'm trying to think of what other concerns there might be. But as far as deliveries, considering I'm not running my business, the deliveries I've gotten are because of COVID. So I order my dog food through Chewy and it comes every week, just like I order stuff through Amazon and FedEx, and Christmas was just here. So I have had a number of deliveries up until recently, but I haven't ordered anything from any retailers in probably a week and a half. I think today's the first delivery I've gotten in 2 weeks. So I know I'm not the only one that gets deliveries during Christmas time, but it seems pretty common for people to have deliveries during this time of year. But as far as the safety of the driveway, I understand the concerns about that. But like I said, the construction's done. That's not happening anymore. I've never had a guest over to my home. I know that's sad. We've been here since April, but so nobody's ever parked in the street that's been a visitor. So I can attest to that. Anybody that has been in the street, unfortunately, we're either dealing with the building or our neighbors across the street. The Powers actually had some work done in their yard, and those people parked in the street as well. But other than that, I've not had guests park in my street. That's not happened.
Hey, Jamie, this is Pat Kelly. May I interject one thing?
Of course. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to mention that there wouldn't be, with the approval of that as a conditional use, pickup and delivery traffic wouldn't be allowed for that particular business at all. So any deliveries would be typical residential deliveries by delivery services for just like you described, FedEx and UPS and what have you. But customers wouldn't be permitted to come and go.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other questions?
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
not
Mayor.
sure I understood what Mr. Kelly said, just now to be sure. Under this conditional use, customers would not be allowed to pick up things there. Is that what I understood?
That's correct. Anything that occurs with that business would have to be done inside, and then she's going to be delivering or shipping. But the zoning ordinance says no commercial traffic or parking.
Okay, are there any other questions?
So, yes, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Lee.
Let's go to Lee first.
So Patrick, you're saying that her customers cannot come to the house to pick up their baked goods?
No, she would have to do delivery or shipping, like she said.
Okay.
I was just curious as to what happens if these conditions are violated.
It's a rescindable permission for this use, for this conditional use.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Let me just highlight that for a second to make sure the council's aware, Mr. Gregory. It's an excellent question. When you rezone a property, this council doesn't really have the authority, but it's a little more complicated to rezone a property back to a different classification. Conditional use is much different. It is being granted as a conditional use for a certain sort of narrow, confined purpose. And that conditional use is exactly what it says. It's conditional. You may use this property for these particular conditional use purposes. And if that property is not used as expected, or if problems arise, then this council has the authority to rescind that conditional use pretty easily, basically in the same manner that you approve it, with a vote to rescind the conditional use.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. And one more point to clarify. This is production is going to be in the kitchen of the house, not in the additional building.
Correct. The 3-car garage is for our vehicles.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Garrett to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Ross Bradley? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, well, actually, let's not do that. I'm sorry. We're going to call by name just so I can get everybody on record. Larry Bradley?
Yes.
Yes. Ross Bradley?
Yes.
Myosha Crawford?
Yes.
David Dickinson?
Yes.
Normie Garrett?
Yes.
Tyler Gregory?
Yes.
Nathan Little?
Yes.
Lee Malcolm?
No.
Motion carries with 1 no.
Mr. Mayor, I'd also be
Moving-
remiss if I didn't say that, Ms. Green, I appreciate your comments, and Ms. Cox, I guess I would hope that you'll be a good neighbor in doing this and just take care of the street, which I'm sure you will.
Absolutely.
And that is a great street, and I'm glad you're in Monroe.
We are
Moving
glad
to
to.
the
Thank
variance.
you for having us.
Yes, ma'am. Moving to the variance at 603 and 606 Alcovey Street. I'll open the floor to council members only for discussion and or action.
Mr. Mayor, I want to be recognized on that. I think we have a little bit of a disconnect about what has happened with this piece of property, and I want to make sure that we all have the same understanding about it. And first, I think Mr. Wilson was a little bit off on the dates on which this thing had been previously before the council. I went back and pulled the minutes from the meetings where we discussed this matter. It was originally discussed in April of 2018, and we had some concerns about it at that point in time. It was tabled in April of 2018 to look into the situation a little bit more. It came back before the council at the May 8, 2018 meeting. And what we did is it was just a straight up approval of a rezoning. We rezoned it to R1A. It was not an approval of his development plan. And you know, Mr. Wilson, I think you're still there. We didn't approve any particular development plan. I'm looking at the minutes from the meeting, and those minutes make it very clear that we did not approve any particular development plan with any particular number of lots, with any particular size of lots or anything. What we did is we said, okay, we'll rezone it to R1A. We will impose conditions for minimum roof pitches, sodded yards, that sort of thing, a buffer on it, a planted buffer of 275 feet along Alcovey Street. And then what is in the minutes is that it would then have to come back to the code office with the proposed development plan and the final plat. So apparently it took quite a long time for the final development plan to get configured. And then that's what came back for approval. So I suspect that we just have a misunderstanding about what goes on here. If you look in the zoning ordinance, it's very clear that all lots in a 1A classification are a minimum of 10,000 square feet. And so the issue I have with this request is if we just say, well, okay, in this situation, we're going to change the lot size so there can be a higher yield of the lots, then I would think any person who does a R1A development would say, okay, you cannot do for Mr. Wilson what you don't do for me. So if you're going to do that, you might as well go to an 8,500 square foot minimum in R1A. I see no other justification for this. And if you look at the criteria that we have in our ordinance for granting variances, frankly, this is just not something that is some natural condition or something that was unavoidable. I think it's just a request to get a higher lot yield. And, yeah, my take on it is I think the planning commission made the right call on it. And I'm opposed to granting the variance for those reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Are there any other questions or comments by council?
I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
If he plans on building these homes, or does he plan on the lots to builders?
To be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that. I would say that it's much more likely that I will not undertake the project. I'm talking to a couple reputable builders that probably will end up doing, buying it, developing it, and building their product there.
And Mr. Wilson, is it your belief then that these two smaller lots would still sell and people would still build on those lots accordingly?
Yes, sir. If I could, I'd like to share my screen. I don't know if I can do it from mine. I don't know if somebody gives my authority. Does someone have to allow me to do that? Let me see.
I don't know.
It said the host disabled participant screen sharing, so I don't know who the host is.
He's not showing up.
That'd be Conwell. You're not showing up at all, Dwayne. And I'm kind of paralyzed on what to do.
Give us just a minute to try to work this out in the background, if you would, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let me know.
We'll see if
allow me to do it now.
Conwell can get that going.
While we wait, I have a question, Mr. Wilson.
Sure.
We've discussed only having 14 lots, and then we're talking about the 2 lot size changes. Is it possible, having looked at your arrangement, how it's set up, would it be possible to have 13 lots instead of 14 lots, and you wouldn't lose, you would lose 1 lot, but you'd have 13 lots instead of 12 lots? Is that something that would be helpful?
I mean, sure. I'll take as many as I can get. 14 was just what we had originally proposed, and that would be my preference to stay with that, just because of, for obvious reasons, because of density and yield. And sure. I don't think that it's. If I could share my screen, I know that you have copies of this, but I wanted to show you the first one, the new one and the old one. And the lots really don't fall in any different place. And again, I didn't do this. Alcovy Surveying did it. So, we didn't just jam. I'm not trying to jam it in and where it doesn't make any sense. If that answers your question.
I got a question for Tyler right quick. Tyler, would it make a difference if you had 13 lots or 14 lots?
Well, sure, it would make a difference, but I'm just asking if it would be helpful for him. If what is being said is that he's not going to be allowed the variance, then perhaps that's another solution. Another thing that sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm trying to find out if 13 or 14 lots would make a difference as to how you would vote.
Oh, I understand. Well, now somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it is this would not pass as it stands, and then there would have to be another. Mr. Wilson would have to go back and redesign the lots. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, we're here to decide if it's gonna pass or not.
Right.
Well,
but he has the option to take.
The map has 2 8,500 square foot lots, correct?
Yes.
So if you removed one 8,500 foot lot and added that 8,500 to the other, you get 13. I mean, I know where you're coming from.
Instead of it having to be totally denied, I think Tyler's saying, would he work with us within our concerns and then agree to 13, and he would not have to start over with the process? And it could take up to how long, Mr. Kelly?
Well, actually, if he would reconfigure.
Yeah, I wouldn't need to start over.
That's what I'm saying. If he would agree.
If he reconfigures and makes all the lots conforming, then we'll move forward with preliminary plat approval. That would be the next step.
But if tonight we were to just blanketly table what is presented, then it would have to be how long?
Well, if you table it and he comes back with a reconfigured plat or reconfigured plan that conforms, then he can withdraw this application and move forward with his plan as it is conforming. So he would just have to do the same thing. He'd go before planning and zoning and council again for preliminary plat approval, and then we'd be able to he'd be able to give us the engineered plans, and then we could issue him his permit once those are approved for erosion control and stormwater management and those sort of things. And he can move forward. It'd be 45 to 60 days at the most, if everybody moves quickly.
Okay, so let me comment on
Now,
that.
Mr. Wilson, are you willing to do that?
Yeah, I think the issue is if I want 13 lots, that there was no reason to go through any of this process. I think if 13 lots, they can all be 10,000 square foot minimum, and it's fine. This is just the way. And to your point, Mr. Dickinson, we'll chalk it up to a misunderstanding, because to the layperson and other people, many people I've spoken with, even builders and whatnot that I've spoken with, that they would have taken. I think you can see my screen. You know, this is what we submitted originally. So I was under the assumption, and I think most people would, I mean, it's a learning lesson, that what you're voting on the rezone is in totality. It's this, it's the lot size, it's the conditions we made, and then we would move forward. That's the way I understood it. So I'll fall on the sword for that one and say, you know, it is what it is. Now,
it is a misunderstanding, and one of the things that the council is going to do is we have a meeting coming up later this month where we're going to talk about some of this and try to get some of these things straightened out so that our process is a little clearer and a little more straightforward, and we don't have these problems. Because, you know, I mean, Mr. Wilson, I made the motion last time to approve your rezone. My concern here is we're starting to have a lot of these requests from folks to vary lot sizes for reasons that really technically do not fit the published criteria that we have in the ordinance. And we can't treat people differently. So if we say to one person, well, we'll make an exception for you, then we're going to have to, I think, make it for everybody. And I don't think that's what we intended. And so we just have a disconnect here. And I think, you know, we need to get this straightened out. If you do 13 lots, if you're willing to do that, that's fine. That's not a problem. And then we can say if somebody else comes in and is similarly situated, then we wouldn't be treating people differently. Because if we say no to you, we got to say no to others.
I'd like to address one thing Mr. Dickinson said then, as far as treating people the same or differently. One of the reasons we have a process for variances is because you can't treat everybody in every situation exactly the same.
I agree.
And so, you know, I mean, there are times that you can do it. One of the criteria that you referenced was whether variance would not cause substantial detriment to the public good. And I look at any time we have a variance request as, does it cause a detriment to the good of the neighborhood? Does it cause a detriment to the surrounding community? or does it cause a detriment to the city as a large? And I guess I try to address that in looking at variances, because the reason we have variances, period, is because you can't treat exactly the same in every situation. There are going to be exceptions to it. And I guess I would ask the question here is, what would be the detriment to approving this, to the neighborhood or to the community as large?
And I agree with you, Mr. Bradley, and on that note, it is one of those things when a variance is brought before us that it gives us the opportunity to assess the particular piece that we're dealing with. And in this case, I feel that this is a product that is greatly needed, and there are almost no homes available. There are no homes available today on smaller lots that are quality built in the 300s on the market that I'm aware of. I was searching yesterday, and they're not there. Of course, we've got a lot of new lots coming out of the ground on Church Street. And that subdivision, Stone Creek, is also being built up, but I'm speaking of right in the city.
I mean, I think we've done variances before of just up the street from this in Legends.
That's
when we
correct.
approved the rezoning of that, but then later came back and there were particular lots within the neighborhood that requested variances, and we approved those. So I don't rule out a variance because we got to treat everybody exactly the same, because while we want to be fair and equitable in all the decisions, there have to be exceptions made based on circumstances.
Mr. Bradley, do you remember why, off the top of your head, why we made exceptions for that variance in Legends?
Well, I remember the first one was the setback from the street so that they could build the garage out closer to the street. That was the very first one, but I think there were a couple of others later on.
Well, Reliant came in and got ready to build out the remainder of the lots. And because of the size of their homes, they needed smaller lot sizes, and they were granted. And I think setbacks from the side and back property lines. Okay. And it's a beautiful development, and it sold out before it was ever finished.
Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I had one question.
Yes, sir.
I was curious, last time we met, there was a question about, what happens when we make this decision for this one and this, and not for the other, setting the precedent. And so I'm just curious how this precedent idea is affected here or not. Because I know that we recently made some choices based on that idea. And it's one of the reasons that we were going to have our meeting soon to clarify some of these ideas. And so one, would Mr. Wilson benefit from that meeting in the future? And two, is this precedent an issue in this decision, or are we able to make this decision without it having to be of large concern in the future?
Well, in this particular case, I think it would set a precedent, because it appears to be a choice to make the lots fit what he wants rather than fit due to topography or a specific type of engineering. I do think, and Dwayne, I want you to hear this, I do think that we might be better off as a cohesive unit after that meeting, but this is on the floor right now. So I'll either have another question, we can table it, we can move forward. It's up to whoever would like to make a motion.
All right, I want to make a motion because I think we need to have this meeting before we make a final decision on this, because I'm not trying to penalize Mr. Wilson at all. I just have a concern about the road we're headed down if we don't handle this appropriately. So I'm going to move to table this until we can have a meeting at the end of the month and then bring it back. I
second that.
Okay.
I have a motion by Mr. Dickinson and a second by Mr. Garrett. Is there any further discussion?
Is that motion to table until next month?
Yes, sir.
Motion to table until next month. A motion by Mr. Dickinson and a second by Mr. Garrett. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'm sorry, folks, I'm just used to doing that. We're going to go one by one. Larry Bradley.
Yes, aye.
Ross Bradley.
Aye.
Myosha Crawford.
Yes.
David Dickinson.
Yes.
Norma Garrett.
Yes.
Tyler Gregory.
Yes.
Nathan Little. Nathan.
Yes.
Lee Malcolm.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We'll table that until our next monthly meeting. Mr. Wilson, I hope that's acceptable. Move into the variance in 132 Pinecrest Drive. I'll open the floor to council members for discussion or questions. Everybody appears muted right now. Does anybody have a question?
I do not have a question.
Would
but
you
I
like
do
to make a
think
motion?
that it's a feasible request.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to make a motion?
I'll be happy to. I make the motion, we issue the variance request.
Thank you. Have a motion to issue those variance requests and a second by Mr. Garrett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
In a roll call.
I'm sorry. Larry Bradley.
Yes.
Ross Bradley.
Yes.
Myosha Crawford.
Yes.
David Dickinson.
Yes.
Norma Garrett.
Yes.
Tyler Gregory.
Yes.
Nathan Little.
Yes.
Lee Malcolm.
Yes.
Motion carries. That passes unanimously. I'm sorry, folks. I might get it right the fourth time.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
hey, this is Lynn Thomas. Susan and I are here, and my fingers weren't fast enough earlier. You went a little
Okay.
bit. Yeah, I'm a novice to Zoom, so I couldn't get
Okay.
where I needed to be to say my little piece. But anyway, I just wanted to
You're
take.
fine.
Well, thank
You're
you.
fine and approved.
Okay, great. And I just wanted to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the City Council for your consideration and your approval on this.
Well, we're looking forward to you getting started with some construction.
Well, listen, if the weather is fitting, it will be Monday.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Moving to the rezone of 201 Bold Springs Avenue. I'll open the floor to council members for discussion or questions.
I'd like a clarification, if I could, because the request had been to rezone to B2. And if I understand the recommendation from staff, that request is recommended to be denied, but rather another request to go to B1. I don't understand how that works. If the request is to B2, do we vote on B2 by itself or not?
Actually, Mr. Bradley, I believe that Mr. Husag had said he was accepting of Patrick's recommendation of going B1. At least that's what I've written. So this would be to approve as B1.
So the request is now from Rick for this to go to B1, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, if that's the request, I'll make the motion to approve the rezone to B1.
Second.
Do you have a second from Ross Bradley? All right, I have a motion by Mr. Dickinson and a second by Mr. Bradley. Is there any discussion? Going to my little list of names. Larry Bradley.
If that's the request from Rick to be B1, then I'll vote yes.
Yes, sir. Ross Bradley.
Yes.
Myosha Crawford.
Yes.
David Dickinson.
Yes.
Norman Garrett. Norman Garrett. I just saw him move.
Yes.
Tyler Gregory.
Yes.
Nathan Little.
Yes.
Lee Malcolm.
Yes.
Motion carries. That passes. And moving to preliminary plat approval of 455 Vine Street. Mr. Kelly.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This request, like I said, is for preliminary plat approval for Joe Dixon Expo Homes for a 220 lot subdivision. They have, as late as today, offered us a revision that eliminates 2 cul-de-sacs, and actually the lot count would go up to 221. But if you approve this one, that one would still be in substantial conformance. Yeah, so we approved the one that he has in the proposal. Those changes that are still in substantial conformance can go to design and engineering, and then it'll come back to you for final approval at another time. But this plat is in substantial conformance with the development regulations and the zoning ordinance and the conditions granted for the rezone.
So should we, would it make any difference when making this motion to approve the plat with 221 lots so it can move forward, or we just want to do it now as is?
Well, that would be at final plat approval. So that minor reconfiguration would be approved at that time. This is just to allow them to take it into design and engineering and come back to us with a development plan.
Sounds perfect. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Have a motion on the floor by Mr. Dickinson to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to go to my little list. Larry Bradley.
Yes.
Ross Bradley.
Yes.
Myosha Crawford.
Yes.
David Dickinson.
Yes.
Norman Garrett.
Yes.
Tyler Gregory.
Yes.
Nathan Little.
Yes.
Lee Malcolm.
Yes.
Motion carries. That passes. Moving to the second reading of the Personnel Policy Ordinance Amendment regarding appeal and grievance procedures. Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Monroe, Georgia personnel policy regarding appeal and grievance procedures and for other purposes. The Mayor and the Council of the City of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, City of Monroe personnel policy is hereby amended with this 8th update, January 2021, by deleting the enumerated subsection as described and substituting with the following in lieu thereof. Those subsections are as follows. Section 1, general. Section 2, definition. Section 3, position classification, pay plan. Section 10, disciplinary actions. Section 11, separations. Section 12, grievance and appeal procedures. Section 15, payroll. Section 19, equal opportunity and non-discrimination. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance will take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and the council of the City of Monroe, Georgia. This constitutes the second reading this 12th day of January, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions for Paul? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve by Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nathan Little. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote, starting with Mr. Larry Bradley,
Yes.
Ross Bradley,
Yes.
Mylisha Crawford. Mylisha, you're muted.
No, I vote no.
Yes, ma'am. David Dickinson,
Yes.
Norma Garrett,
No.
Tyler Gregory,
Yes.
Nathan Little,
Yes.
Lee Malcolm.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-2. That passes. Then we need resolution for the open records officer. I'm sorry, I got lost on the page. Mr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Mayor. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Monroe for purpose of naming an open records officer and an alternate and for other purposes. Whereas the provision of the Georgia Open Records Act was amended by the legislature in 2012, whereas one of the changes allows for the appointment of an open records officer to whom all requests for records must be made. Whereas a further change in the act provides a municipal corporation may require all requests be made in writing, whereas the act provides for further notice of such change. Now therefore, provisions pursuant to provisions of the act, the City Council, governing body of Monroe hereby resolves as follows. The city administrator is designated as the open records officer, and the city clerk is designated as the alternate open records officer to act in the absence of the city administrator. To act on behalf of the city of Monroe and all of its related and subsidiary entities as defined in the act. All requests for records made under the act directed to the city of Monroe shall be made in writing to the open records officer, or in his absence, the alternate records officer. The open records officer is directed on all city of Monroe websites to prominently display this designation requirement. The open records officer is directed to notify the Walton Tribune as the county legal organ and any other media regularly covering the city of Monroe matters of the content of this resolution. The open records officer is directed to notify city of Monroe employees and volunteers that any request made under the act shall be directed to the open records officer, or in his absence to the open records officer. This act shall be effective immediately upon the notifications to the media and changes to the websites having been made. So resolved this 12th day of January 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Any questions for Paul? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the resolution.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Nathan Little and a second by, did I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Or I can go to my trusty little sheet. Larry Bradley.
Aye.
Ross Bradley.
Yes.
Mylisha Crawford.
Yes.
David Dickinson.
Yes.
Norma Garrett.
Yes.
Tyler Gregory.
Yes.
Nathan Little.
Yes.
Lee Malcolm.
Yes.
Motion carries. That passes. Moving to the approval of election qualifying fees, Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for approval of the 2021 election qualifying fees per Georgia Code Section 21-2-131 for the election to be held on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. I'll note that the qualifying will begin on Monday, August 16th, 2021 at 8:30 a.m. and will end Friday, August 20th, 2021 at 4:30 p.m. This is for districts 3, 6, 8, and the office of the mayor. The council districts will be $180 each, and office of the mayor $216.
Thank you, Logan. Are there any questions for Mr. Probst? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move is approved.
A motion, was that you, Larry?
Yes.
Motion to approve by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to go with Tyler Gregory on the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor will run this sheet. Been doing this for years. Larry Bradley.
Yes.
Ross Bradley.
Yes.
Mylisha Crawford.
Yes.
David Dickinson,
Yes.
Norman Garrett,
Yes.
Tyler Gregory,
Yes.
Nathan Little,
Yes.
Lee Malcolm.
Yes.
Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the LAP resolution, LAP resolution for the CDBG requirement. Mr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution adoption of a language access plan, whereas the city of Monroe wishes to be included to be in accordance with Title VI non-discrimination laws regarding provisions of appropriate access to services and activities provided by federal agencies and recipients of federal assistance. Whereas the city of Monroe is in receipt of HUD funding through the CDBG program, and whereas the Georgia Department of Community Affairs has encouraged and provided guidance for the adoption of the language access plan for limited English-speaking persons, let it therefore be resolved that the city of Monroe has prepared and is updating its language access plan related to the fiscal year 2020 CDBG. Let it be resolved that Debbie Crow has been named in the LAP as the LAP coordinator. Let it be resolved that the LAP will be updated as new census data regarding LEPs is presented and/or a new CDBG or other federal grant is awarded and requires that the LEP be updated or revised. So resolved this 12th day of January 2021. That is a resolution, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions for Paul? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Tyler Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a voice vote. Signify by saying yay or nay. Larry Bradley?
Yay.
Ross Bradley?
Yay.
Myosha Crawford?
Yes.
David Dickinson?
Yay.
Norman Garrett? Norman is muted. Can you nod your head? Thank you. Tyler Gregory?
Yes.
Nathan Little?
Yay.
Lee Malcolm?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to the 2018 CDBG Paving Award for South Madison Avenue. Mr. Probst.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned in an email last week, sorry we didn't get this on for further discussion, but I know how critical paving South Madison is right now. We just got our recommendation letter back from the engineers to approve the bids that were put forth for this this repaving project as part of the 2018 CDBG. The low bid was $356,372.49 from Blount Construction Company Incorporated. And that is staff's recommendation as well as the engineer's recommendation to use that CDBG money to pay for this paving on South Madison. And of course, the remainder of South Madison will be paved with the LMIG funds that was on the separate award. I believe through the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Probst. Is that will all be in conjunction to get together, the CDBG and the LMIG, correct?
Right. We're gonna pave it the length of South Madison.
I just wanted to confirm. Are there any questions for Logan? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Dickinson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Who said that? Lee Malcolm?
Yes.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a yay or nay vote. Mr. Larry Bradley?
Yay.
Mr. Ross Bradley?
Yay.
Myosha Crawford?
Yes.
David Dickinson?
Yay.
Norman Garrett?
Yes.
Tyler Gregory?
Yay.
Nathan Little?
Yay.
Lee Malcolm?
Yes.
Motion carries. That passes. Moving to my report, and I will try to be quick because it's always at the very end. I have good news and bad news about vaccine distribution. I tried to include you all on an email at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon to the Department of Public Health, the top 3 folks that we work with over there. I included a couple of area doctors who've been trying to get the vaccine distribution to Walton County and in Monroe to no avail. The good news, the state has 555,800 doses as of this afternoon. Unfortunately, only 183,870 of those have been administered. And in the last 7 days, our counts are up. 600 people per 100,000 are testing positive. That's up 13%. Deaths per 100,000 are 4.7%. And that's an 80% increase. But our medical team, our doctors, nurses, and staff at Piedmont Walton and around the entire area are going way over and above anything I think any of us ever expected out of them to provide proper care for the folks who are battling this virus. In the community, it's really come together over the last week. I believe every meal, every lunch and dinner has been taken care of for the team at the hospital, and it's been coming from churches. It's been coming from Masons lodges, I believe Rotarians and Kiwanians, and just regular individuals. A couple of folks from Monroe that you know well, and I won't call out their names, have raised $9,000 in donations just from individuals to provide snacks and just a brief bit of respite for the team at the hospital. So, if you would keep them in your prayers, and I will continue to hound and harass Department of Public Health, the governor's office. I don't care who we got to do. We're going to get vaccines here. And we're going to take care of our folks, and that's our ultimate responsibility. And I don't think any of us takes it lightly. So if you see me being carted away on the news by somebody in handcuffs, it's because I've been trying to knock down some doors to get us some vaccines. So I'll apologize for that embarrassment in advance. And I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ross and a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Crawford. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, like sign. We didn't do voice vote on that one. Motion carries. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.